Support for this project is provided by the Dairy Business Innovation Initiative through Fresno State University. Visit our website at dairypcc.net for more information and other resources in the dairy industry. Program funding for the PCC comes from the USDA. For more information on this and other programs, visit usda.gov for the PCC Dairy Business Innovation Initiative. Support for this podcast comes from the Department of Agricultural Education and Communication at Cal Poly. Visit aged.calpoly.edu to view our majors and support our programs. That's aged.calpoly.edu for the Department of Agricultural Education and Communication at Cal Poly.
Hello everybody, my name is Joe Aguiar and welcome to You, Me, and the PCC, a dairy products podcast brought to you by the Pacific Coast Coalition. Like I said at the top, my name is Joe Aguiar and I'm also joined by my co-host who I'll let introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Kaylen, Jaime, and I am excited to be back for episode number 4. We're doing it again. We're continuing to talk about the PCC and dairy.
Yep, back to episode 4, and we're joined by a really awesome group of hosts who I'll let go down the line and introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Katheryn Nathania. I'm a grad student at Fresno State and I'm currently doing a research project funded by the PCC, so it has been a pleasure to be here.
And Dr. Pheasant, if you want to go next.
Thank you for inviting me to join your podcast.
Of course.
My name is Dr. Susan Pheasant and I serve as the Cowkeeper for the Pacific Coast Coalition. And then my other hat is Director of the Institute for Food and Agriculture at Fresno State.
And then Laura, if you want to go next.
Yeah, thanks for having us. My name's Laura Ginsburg, and I run the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center, which is based out of Vermont and represents the 11 states of the Northeast.
Very cool. Dr. Pheasant, you said you were the Cowkeeper of the PCC. What is that position? That's a very unique position.
I was given the Cowkeeper position by Dr. Carmen Lacone, and my job is to wrangle the herd in terms of grants and logistics and the business aspects of putting the grant together and running the projects.
We love talking to Dr. Carmen Licon. She
Yeah,
was on
she
our
was on
first episode.
Yeah, we
She's
were also
wonderful.
able to go out and talk to her while she was out at work out at our creamery. So it was also really cool to see her in her environment working on stuff related to the PCC. So I think we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk about the conference that you guys are at Shell Beach. So if you guys kind of just want to talk about some of the highlights, what you've seen, who's been there. So if you guys kind of want to give a general overview of that.
Yeah, there's approximately 200, 250 people from all over the U.S. as well as all over the world. And they're all coming to Shell Beach to talk about product processing and packaging dairy innovations specific to milk and milk products. And this is the second annual one that the PCC's been involved in.
What is the PCC's role within this conference?
We bring some of the money.
Perfect. Is there any advocacy involved? Like what's kind of its main highlight for being a part of it and promoting this conference?
We're very much in tune with bringing innovation and ideas and connecting people. And so this conference is one way to be able to do that. We have key partners with the California Dairy Innovation Center, and they team with Cal Poly to host it. And then PCC is a financial and networking supporter.
Awesome. Very, very cool. So this conference, it's kind of broken up into sessions. What's been some of the topics with those sessions? Who have been some of the speakers? What have you guys talked about while you've been there?
We are on day 1, morning 1.
Okay. Yeah. So it's still early.
I know it's still fairly early.
Yeah,
I think you guys have had one session.
Yeah, one or
maybe
two sessions.
We've had 3.
3.
But I'll just share about one of the sessions. And actually it was Dr. Lacone was presenting and research. And it was a public-private partnership to look at, can we feed certain components to cows and then that influence the milk and the dietary nutrition components of the milk that would they then transfer to the cheese? And the bottom line is yes, but more research is needed.
Yeah, to find out those details maybe. Katheryn and Laura, is there any session that you guys are excited to attend? Is there one that's already happened that you think was really captivating?
I was really excited about presenter who was in the same panel as Dr. Licone talking about feed supplements to reduce the enteric emissions from ruminant animals. And just thinking about the research, some of it was hot off the press. And so being able to see those results and know that there are likely some solutions that are coming pretty quickly to us to start to address the climate impacts of dairy production.
Yeah, very, very cool. What else?
I was going to say, is there one more session that you're looking forward to?
Actually, a session after this, or probably after this, it's about whey. So, because I'm working with whey and, all this stuff about sustainability, so that really piqued my interest.
A lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about includes research. What is so critical about having the innovative, sustainable research at the forefront for producers?
I think it's really important for farmers to be able to, and processors, to be able to access research that's applicable to their scale and the products or production methods that they're using. Because so many farms and processors, they're just so busy running their business that they can't go out and find necessarily the best answer for their own needs. But if we can offer them a suite of solutions that they can choose from, I think that really leads to some great solutions.
Yeah. Are there any dairies present at this conference, or is it all mostly groups like the PCC and Cal Poly and groups from like the USDA, or is it's mostly that kind of research focused?
It's commercial companies. Most of them are processors or supporting the processing industry, as well as academia and research. Yeah, but it's public and private and governmental. Yeah.
You said this was year 2. Have you
that we've been involved in.
You've been involved in. What was year 1 like? Have you seen any big differences going from being involved from one year to the next?
One of the outcomes from year 1 is a lot of upper management come to this conference, and so they expressed an interest to have a shorter opportunity for dialogue. And so we've done an innovation day at Fresno State, and then middle management and entry-level people can come to that. And it's a little more hands-on. The students are presenting their research. And so it's nice to have those in combination.
Mm-hmm. That's very, very cool. Can you talk a little bit about that innovation day? I know you kind of briefly brought it up, but does PCC tie into that at all, or is that mostly Fresno State?
Everything we do is tied to PCC.
It is all
yeah.
tied to PCC.
So PCC is California, Oregon, and Washington,
yes.
CAL,
yeah, it's the West
plus
yeah.
a new CAL, which includes Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. And so the idea is to bring folks together and, as Laura said, be able to right-size the research and the resources for those businesses.
Well, I was just going to ask, from a student's perspective, Katheryn, how have you liked your involvement within the PCC?
I think it's really cool to be exposed directly to the industry and what it needs. So, you don't want to do research just mainly because why not do it, but you want it to be beneficial to your community.
Do you have any specific experiences with the PCC that really stand out?
I did an internship during my undergrad year where I repurposed spent coffee grounds and incorporated to cheese. And then I think that it's a little eye-opening how there's so much stuff where you can do, and then things you need to do for sustainability issues.
Mm-hmm. Are all these opportunities help leading you to a career goal that you wish to achieve? Is this maybe helping narrow the focus down to something within the dairy industry?
Yes, I really, well, hopefully it is, but I really like doing research and development. So I don't know, maybe creating new products in the future, and then that would really help me focus, and then focus what kind of product I want to learn, and then research in the future. So
do you have a background in dairy?
Actually, just probably my involvement with PCC and my undergrads.
That's awesome. So what encouraged you to kind of get involved in the dairy industry? Because it's so large in California, and I know we can talk about what it looks like out of state in Vermont, but what kind of sparked that interest of saying, hey, I want to go into dairy production?
I think you have to blame Dr. Licone for that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I took so intro to dairy research, processing with her, and then that kind of piqued my interest. And then there was a binational study exchange program to Mexico that she organized, and then I got accepted to that program, and that really piqued my interest
That's awesome.
since.
I think it's like any program. If you have a really fabulous instructor, then you keep taking their classes, and it just leads to wonderful opportunities. And you guys have that with this class.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree. Yeah, because once if you have someone that knows what they're talking about, is passionate about what they want to teach students, it's infatuating. Well, I guess infatuating is better not, but it's infectious, and kids just get roped in and they love it, and they're being taught and led by someone who loves it just as much. So I think that's something
And
that we've
bringing
seen.
real world experience
Exactly,
to it.
exactly. That's huge. I think you know that through the PCC, and especially here at Cal Poly's, learn by doing from industry is huge. And I think this is another example of us getting to work with equipment and work with groups like the PCC to get that real world experience, which is huge.
Yeah, we have a lot to thank to our educators. So.
Yeah. Yep. Thank an educator.
Continues
They're
to
huge.
evolve.
Yeah. No, most definitely. So now I think we're gonna move to our man on the street, and we're gonna get some dairy input from our public.
All right, we're out here at the Cal Poly Dairy Unit, and we got this new batch of calves here, so we're gonna go see how many times a week they drink dairy products. All right, let's see. How many times a week do you consume dairy products? Meow. How many times a week do you consume dairy products? I swear it's licking my hand, not the mic.
Probably 7 days a week.
Probably also every day.
Upwards of 15.
Every day.
What would you say is the most popular one you consume?
Milk is the most popular one, but my favorite one is ice cream.
Whole milk. Straight from the tank.
Ice cream or cream cheese?
Milk. I eat a lot of cheese too. Ice cream. Mostly milk. Milk's number one.
I love milk! Is it true you make chocolate milk? She says no comment. I love milk!
All right. So now we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. So I guess, Laura, I want to ask you, you come from Vermont, which the dairy industry there, it's very different compared to California. What have been some of the biggest differences you've seen coming from the East Coast and now out West?
I think actually coastal California dairy is very similar to Vermont and New England. And that's part of the reason why we're so excited to be out here, because there are so many similarities and opportunities for collaboration between the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center and the Pacific Coast Coalition. So in Vermont, most dairies are small. The vast majority have less than 200 cows. Most of them are grazing at some point of the year. We can't really have a farm that has more than 1,000 cows because of geographic and weather constraints. With snow on the ground 4 to 5 months of the year, and you can't have your cows outside for a couple of those other months, it just gets hard, to have a big herd. But we do represent New York and Pennsylvania, and there are some really large farms there. And so I think there is actually a lot of similarities, maybe not weather or climate-wise, but in the production scale and the variety of scales, the connection to consumer and consumer preferences that we are pretty excited about and get to utilize a lot in the Northeast.
Cool. You mentioned New York and Pennsylvania as additional states to Vermont. What are some of the other states that are part of this coalition on that eastern seaboard?
So the Northeast Dairy Innovation Center represents 11 states, Pennsylvania, Maryland in the south, all the way up to Maine. So pretty diverse. And Rhode Island, they only have 6 farms. So it's pretty small.
That's crazy.
All the way up to New York, which has more than 5,000.
Okay.
I think I've grown up in California, so I think I forget kind of like you guys have to deal with snow. And we're like, the day that California Dairy has to deal with snow,
Yeah.
that's going to be an
That'll be
interesting
a day. Yeah.
day.
That'll be a day. Yeah.
But just, I think that's so interesting how that geography changes. Of a lot of our dairies are family owned, but maybe they're not as small as the 200 head. So seeing those differences and yet still sustaining an industry is huge.
I think on the coast, our dairies are smaller, but when you get into the Central Valley, that's when you get the thousands and thousands and thousands.
Yeah. The generations of family.
One of the things that's really intriguing about the work that Laura and her team are doing is the cohort model. And if you want to speak to that.
Happy to talk about it. So I spent some time in New Zealand. I did a Fulbright researching dairy policy there and how it impacts farmers. And so one of the things that I was really inspired by was their peer-to-peer model of learning and education, and they're open book. So farmers are sharing financials and production strategies, and they're really committed to continuous improvement. And so what we found, or what we saw, was that there's not this real opportunity for farmers to connect with each other in a long-term technical assistance format. So we offer funding for technical assistance providers to offer cohort-based technical assistance for 2 years. So they form a group of farmers, and now we actually opened it to processors as well. And they meet every month as a group, and then they get one-on-one sessions, and they're learning and developing, and then they leave the technical assistants with all these great relationships that they can lean on when they may not have access to the group or sort of more formalized technical assistance.
That's super important. It's kind of like that community base is kind of what you're talking about. And I know agriculture is a community on its own that a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of how close and how supportive they are. And even starting with undergrad within an agriculture-based college, that community is huge. So making sure that communication and community continues on to industry, that's amazing.
No, yeah, and I think as a student here, and I'm sure as a student at Fresno State, you see that community being built both at the undergrad and the graduate level, just because you're all in the same areas, you're going through the same experiences, and I think that's something that's really cool and just an important part of agriculture that we can't forget. So now I think we're going to talk a little bit more about the PCC and what goes on there. So I think I want to start with you, Dr. Pheasant. How'd you get involved with this project? How did that start?
We can all blame it on Dr. Lacombe.
She's kind of the scapegoat.
Yeah, she's the scapegoat. So the Institute for Food and Ag is designed to support faculty and students in their outreach and their research efforts. And I interpreted that to help guide the faculty in grant writing. And so Dr. Lacombe she had an idea, and she started with crowdfunding. And then we worked up to small grants that are specific to the California system, and then going for public-private partnership grants, and then we applied for the USDA one, and they adopted us. So we have 3 big sisters, and then the PCC.
Cool. So that grant you applied for through the USDA, that's through the USDA AMS, correct?
Correct, Ag Marketing Service.
And then who are those other big sisters you mentioned?
Vermont and the Northeast Dairy Coalition, and then one in Wisconsin and one in Tennessee. Yeah, and they each have about 11 states, 11 to 14, depending on that.
One thing we've asked almost all of our guests on the podcast is, how have you seen the impacts of the PCC? So this can go for every single one of you. Is there a family, a business, an event that has stuck out to you that has happened because of the PCC?
Yeah, or a certain grantee that has been able to utilize the grant money in either a creative or really effective way that's been able to help their dairy operation.
I think all of the above. One of the we have grant cycles, and we're about to close one on tomorrow. But we had 8 winners in the very first cycle, and those people helped the next round in their applications. And some of them also applied, and they didn't necessarily get it a second time. It's like, well, I helped so and so, but I like that spirit of community, and then helping to build that network. So if they have technical issues or marketing issues or equipment issues, they're able to contact with each other. In terms of actual companies, some of the equipment has been automation, and people are actually in tears. They're so excited that they got the money, and they're no longer cutting cheese by hand. And so they got a cheese cutting wheel, and it allows them to do precise cuts. So not only are they not extending their own labor, but they can now enter a retail market because they have the exact weight and precise weights that you can't necessarily get with hand cutting. And that's just one example. It just opens up their markets because of that technology.
How do you guys determine amounts so I know you say it's an applicant pool, dairies, and all across the western states that you mentioned earlier, they apply for this money. How are grant amounts determined? Is it based on the size of the dairy that applies? Is it what they need? How does that work?
Ours is, each of the 4 DBIs does it differently. Okay. So I'll let Laura speak to hers. But for us, we do dollar amounts. So we do up to $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, $500,000, $1 million.
Okay.
So we actually do give away $1 million.
Wow.
Everything's on a reimbursable basis. So that means that the dairy processor has to be able to front the money, and then we're able to reimburse them once equipment's installed or technical assistance has been provided or something that way.
Yeah, and Flora, if you want to talk about your DBII and kind of give your perspective.
Sure. We're state-based, so the other 3 centers are all university-based, but I'm a state of Vermont employee. And so we do operate quite differently than the other 3 centers. We've been around 2 years more than you, and so we've received a little bit more money than the California Center just because of that longer existence. But we've granted out almost $30 million to close to 300 individual recipients. And we run about 12 to 16 grant programs a year. So we do some that are specific to farmers, some that are specific to processors. We have one that's open only to small ruminant dairy producers and processors right now. And then we do other things regarding research or the technical assistance contracts as well. And our grants are not reimbursement, they're deliverables based. So we give people half the money they apply for up front, because we don't really want people to take out loans. And it also reduces the barriers to accessing funding. So most of our grants our average award is about $97,000, but we go as low as 10, and we've done as high as $1 million.
That's insane. So you've talked a little bit, you just mentioned how you are state-based while the California system is university-based. Can you guys talk a little bit about that, what that difference looks like in terms of the program? Is there much of a difference?
Yeah,
or is
that was
it
going to be my
just
next
how
question. That sounds really
works?
interesting how that works.
The primary one that we see is we don't have research facilities.
Okay.
So really the money that's coming to the state is to pay staff for staff time and for staff travel, for communications, ad purchases, and things like that. And then everything else is going out as funding into the dairy community.
Okay.
I think for us, and Dr. Lacone might have spoken to this, is we're very coalition-based, and so we have strong partners in Washington State University, Oregon State, Chapman, and then Cal Poly and Fresno State. And so being able to provide more opportunities for students, as well as technical assistance for the dairies, in addition to the funding, and kind of a 3-pronged stool approach in being able to do that. Yeah.
And I guess, Katheryn, as a grad student, how's this impacted you? Have you been able to, I guess, have a better experience as a grad student because of the PCC, or how's that work for you?
Well, I think I've been really fortunate to be involved super early. So I think I've been to a lot of conferences and expo, more than the typical students could have went. Probably more than 10 at this point. It's so much. And then I also got to talk and present on some of them. So that has been a really good opportunity.
What have you been able to present on?
So last year when I met Laura, I was a part of a panel for the World Dairy Expo. So that was really awesome. Well, everyone has been working for years. I'm the only student there. I was just giving my point of view. That was awesome.
But what do you think is important about giving a student's point of view versus someone who's in industry?
So I feel if you just study and then you don't get to expose in the dairy, you don't really know what to prepare yourself. And then, researching something just mainly out of your interest is not really not really helpful for the community, because ideally I want to research something and then share it to the public so they can use it or improve it. And she has said, we don't want to do research that not utilizable by smaller farmers, dairy, cheese makers. So that's why what I'm doing right now, hopefully I can share it to smaller cheese makers and then help them utilize their whey that's probably they throw away their whey.
And what are you researching? I don't know if you brought that up earlier, but what are you researching?
I'm currently doing research on acid whey from cheese making and turning them into beers.
That's right. Is there anything else that are you looking into furthering that research, or do you want to research something else within the dairy industry? What are you thinking with that?
I ideally really want to research on upcycling the waste stream in dairy, because I think that's really interesting, and sustainability is really important. And it has also been in the conference that we're in today, it has been brought up quite a bit. So
That's what I was looking back on. I think sustainability is kind of the overall topic of the conference at Shell Beach at the moment.
The first speaker was talking about trends, and he looked at trends within California dairy executives as opposed to U.S. dairy executives. But one of the commonalities was an increase in emphasis on sustainability and an increase on the need to prepare talent.
Oh, okay.
So that includes you.
Yes. We were talking about that earlier before we started this, of how the talent is. And then we talked about the educators and the teachers, making sure that they continue that for the next generation.
We offer internships, or we offer money for internships, let me put it that way. But the idea is that students, whether they're human resources or marketing or dairy processing, can all get experience in the dairy industry and potentially enter.
That's amazing. So when we look at the sustainability aspect of that, California has a huge push towards sustainability at the moment in terms of whether it's climate smart innovations, new technologies that we've talked about being implemented. How does that differ from maybe Vermont or other of the sister companies that are part of the DBII?
I think right now in dairy, sustainability is like one of those really key topics where maybe 5 years ago it would have come up in a session, and now it really is the focus of most of the conversations is how can dairy reach the sustainability goals that they've set for themselves. For Vermont and the Northeast, it really is a lot about competition and market presence, because we have so many consumers, but we have so many small cheesemakers and other processors that in order to compete, we're never going to win on scale. So we have to compete based on values. And if consumers are choosing products based on sustainability identifiers for the product, then that's something that we can really leverage. So we can talk about being small farms, we can talk about being grass-based, and we're actually doing quite a bit of work with packaging, thinking about ways to make packaging more sustainable, reduce the use of virgin plastics as a way for our products to be more competitive both domestically and internationally.
One of the large dairy processors in California was talking about 2 years ago, sustainability was something that occasionally came up in their conversations, and now it's every day, and it's part of all of upper management schools in their deliverables, and it's tied to their performance reviews.
Really?
Yeah.
Sustainability, it's come a long way. At the conference, have they talked about any specific methods or strategies for meeting some of these sustainability goals?
Come back tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, maybe we can follow up on that once you guys go through the rest of the sessions.
We're here with Delaney and Arkin. Why do you consume dairy products?
So that my bones are strong, so if I fall off my horse, I don't break anything.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
What dairy products do you consume, and how do they help you?
I consume ice cream most of the time. I don't usually drink milk, but they're healthy for your bones.
I drink whole milk in my coffee every morning.
How does this help you?
It makes my bones stronger.
I would say 2% organic milk helps me start my day and not get heartburn.
That's great.
Cheese. Cheese makes me happy. That's about it.
Yogurt. That's really all I can think of right now. I love quesadillas, so I have cheese too. So.
How do you think they help you?
Oh gosh, I've never broken a bone. I've always had milk, so I'll go with that.
What dairy products do you consume in your day? Thank you so much. Great response.
And we're back. So we got to see our rodeo team and see how dairy helps them. So now I think we're going to kind of bounce back to TMK. So I know Dr. Pheasant, they are a grantee of this program that are Recycling Way. So can you talk about them a little bit more, how they've been a part of the PCC and what they do?
Part of your classmates and your instructor, and I had the opportunity to visit TMK in December, and they are a small dairy in Central Oregon, and they are turning the whey waste product into a distilled product, into vodka, and they're in the top 30 vodkas in the world. They've actually competed on all that, so that's one way of being able to turn a waste product into something.
We did have Dr. Mike and Riley on one of our previous episodes, and we got to talk about their trip, and it was super cool to hear all the products they got to try or how much information they were taking in a day, because the trip was relatively short for how much they got to do. And so were you along on that trip as well?
I had to sacrifice and have birthday ice cream for breakfast.
Oh,
It was delicious.
well, what was your
Take one for the team.
I'm so happy you did.
Thank you.
Ice cream for breakfast?
It was purple
Wow.
too.
Oh, was it
Lavender?
No, it was boysenberry.
I love poison.
How
It
is
was
that?
It was delicious. But this is a company, an ice cream company based in Portland, and they have imported a New Zealand-style ice cream machine. So it actually essentially whips the ice cream and mixes it with fruit, and then it makes a really nice swirl.
Is there a different consistency in it when you are tasting it?
It tastes like there's no calories because it's so light.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, that's really, No, that's really dangerous. So kind of bouncing out off the boysenberry ice cream and the vodka, did you see any other unique additional products being created by dairies, or were these kind of the big highlights?
Oh, I think we were talking about this at the conference today, that innovation can be innovation for yourself and your business, or it can be for all of humankind or for an industry. So a lot of our companies are doing innovation for their region or for their business. There's another company in Central Coast, Wonder Cow, and they are using colostrum-based products as a nutritional supplement. So I think that's really interesting. There's a company called Petite Pot. It's based in the Bay Area, and they have a very decadent chocolate pudding-like creation. Yes, it's very good.
Laura, have you been able to go to any dairies and see any styles of unique production or unique innovation towards your companies?
Susan was really amazing and organized our lives for the next 4 days. And so yesterday we started north of San Francisco, and we went to a couple different creameries there and just had an amazing cheese and fruit plate at 9:30 in the morning overlooking the ocean and green hills and blue skies, and it was really awesome. So we're looking forward. We have more site visits tomorrow and Friday before we head home, and really excited to meet some of the grantees here and understand how the grant funds have helped them, and also get to try their products.
Who are some of the grantees you're supposed to meet with today and tomorrow?
Tomorrow they're going to Paso Robles, and they'll be meeting with Central Coast Creamery. And then Friday to Salinas, Shock Family Creamery, and they're making both butter and cheeses. And then we're heading up to the Bay Area to meet with Alexander Farms, which is actually based up in Crescent City, but their processing facility is in the Bay Area.
Katheryn, have you been able to go to any creameries that have stood out to you, or are you going to be along on these site visits coming up the next few days?
Probably not because of my classes, but last year we got to visit Lady Lane, and Blue Silo. So it was really awesome seeing how this grant has helped them.
One is a drinkable yogurt, and then the other does a lot of work with farmers markets in the Portland area, as well as their community, and milk and cheese and ice cream.
Very, very cool. Very cool. So now I think we're going to move to kind of talking about the future of the PCC and what that looks like. So I know sustainability, we kind of brought it up earlier in the episode, but sustainability is huge. I mean, that's kind of the overarching topic that was brought up at the conference. It's kind of what's going on right now. How have you seen, have you seen grantees use the grant money to implement more sustainable practices, sustainable equipment? Has that kind of been a trend, or is that not really being implemented?
I think the answer is yes, but it's sustainability in terms of economic sustainability, and being able to, a lot of our funding comes from pandemic recovery, and so being able to address some of those challenges, whether it's supply chain or market access that emerged in the pandemic, and how do you overcome that and position your business to move forward. So we were meeting with our partners yesterday, and looking essentially at a three-pronged approach, that being able to provide pilot plants for people to try out new products and scale up from their original idea, continuing a focus with students, and then continuing the dairy grants as well.
Yeah. And Laura, I wanted to ask you, have you seen any similarities or differences on the East Coast in terms of implementing, like Dr. Pheasant said, either economic sustainability or just general, like climate-regarded sustainability practices in those dairies?
Absolutely. We have both business sustainability and climate leadership as two of our priorities in all of our funding streams. And so we require applicants to talk about how the projects will decrease their energy use. It could be they're using less diesel fuel because they're going from a skid steer to a feed pushing robot, or it could be employee worker safety. People are hand packing millions of packs of cheese, and they're automating that, and so they're going to be able to double their processing production and capacity and re-skill those employees from hand packing to doing something that is a more livable and sustainable job for them. So that is really wrapped into all of our goals, and something that we think is absolutely essential. If we're going to be providing funding, we want to know that it's going to be for the long-term good of the people, the planet, and the animals.
One of the big differences between the Northeast and here is they're able to focus on both the farm side as well as the processing side, and we've chosen to just focus on the processing.
How have you seen that help with the business side of things, maybe, and how, like, is there a bigger supply of profits for these companies? Is there more production, or will they be able to maybe expand their herd in the future, or are they mainly just focusing on improving what they have at the moment?
Our thoughts in focusing on the processing was to help businesses steer away from just fluid milk, which doesn't necessarily have the best price or consistent price. And so being able to enter into higher value products like cheese or yogurt or something that way, and something that potentially has both a faster turnaround like you would have with yogurt, or cheese, you have a lot of inventory on the shelf while it's aging, and that's not immediate cash flow. And so you have to be able to balance those two.
Okay.
Okay, very good. And I guess, Katheryn, asking you, how have you seen sustainability be implemented, whether that's in your research or just experiences you've had with Dr. Pheasant and other groups in the PCC? How's that worked for you?
I guess mainly, when you're doing research, you're concerned about the fundings. So I guess when you try to do research, and especially using side streams, it's gonna help with the funding side.
Yeah.
And then you get to recycle all this wonderful stuff that's getting thrown away. And I guess that also helped a little bit with the environmental around our campus, instead of just throwing it down the drain and then have the environmental side deal with it. You can do something early.
A lot of the companies, because the whey is a waste product, a lot of the companies have to pay for that to be disposed of. And so Katheryn's research could be very integral in creating a profit stream for that.
Yeah, it sounds really, really integral. It sounds super important. So next, I kind of ask, how do you guys see the PCC evolving into the future as we're moving into sustainability and other streams of knowledge? How do you guys see the PCC evolving? And I guess, Laura, how do you see your group evolving as well with that?
Well, I think we're at a really interesting juncture for the dairy business initiatives as a whole program of the USDA, because it's Farm Bill funded. And as you know, we are sort of in this gray zone of not having a Farm Bill. And so we all have funding through 2026.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard. In some ways, it's hard to plan because we don't know what the future is going to hold. But in other ways, we see all this opportunity to say, like, okay, we've done this research on packaging. We've done research on workforce development and apprenticeship programming. How are we going to leverage that and launch it into some sort of real program and real grant opportunity in the future? And so I think we see so much demand just for basics on the farm side. So things that are not sexy, like bulk tanks and manure scrapers and fans. But those are the things that are actually going to help the businesses succeed long term, because it's going to reduce their costs. And so there's the balance of saying, like, we're going to fund things that are pretty standard versus thinking about big picture, like really innovative pushes to adopt new technologies or practices or packaging.
We had a meeting with USDA, we being all 4 dairy business innovation centers. We met with USDA, and they're actually wanting more stories and looking at the impact, whether it's for businesses or students or whatever, or whomever. And they want to be able to share those stories as well. And so hopefully that will feed into Farm Bill action.
One thing we've talked about with other special guests on the episode is how the stories and the advocacy make a difference, how you can tell the agriculturalist story to people who may not understand what a dairy background looks like or what a dairy looks like at the end of the day. What are you excited about for maybe the opportunity of sharing those stories with consumers?
It's real people.
Yeah.
It's real people, and it's telling their story. And I mean, TMK, for example, without charging, they have 12,000 to 15,000 students come to their farm every year. And they don't charge because they just want people to know where their food comes from and that they can be better informed voters, whether they're directly involved in agriculture or they're just a consumer, and that the milk doesn't come off the shelf and chocolate milk from a brown cow.
No, that's important, making sure that disconnect is bridged, because like you mentioned, this is the voter population that's impacting what regulations are put in place and what policies are affecting different dairy businesses, and how it's affecting the agriculturalist's livelihood as they have to figure out how to make up find the money to get these new technologies to make their business stay afloat.
And even if it's something as the consumer's understanding just where your food comes from. I mean, we've seen so much just factorization and kind of a more manufactured perspective of where food comes from. It's coming in, frozen bags or an ingredient list that you can't even pronounce. So just understanding where your food comes from and just food literacy, I think, is really important. And like you said with TMK, you said 12 to 15,000 people per year? Are there other dairies and groups doing kind of similar educational outreach like this that you know of?
There are. This just happened to
pop into your head.
Pop in my head, yeah.
No, because that's really, really cool. And I think just the sooner you can educate, the sooner you can teach people what is actually going on in the food industry and where their food is coming from. That's huge, because that shifts their perspective. That allows them to gain a new understanding, and it's just really, really big. So. And
we all faced some of that in the pandemic, and what was on the grocery store shelf and what wasn't, and where did it come from, and why wasn't it there?
Well, those advocacy opportunities are really exciting. The possibilities of just sharing the stories and the narrative that we're going to be able to write with that, it's exciting of what's going to change and how that's going to affect the future of the dairy industry and the PCC.
One of the things that happened during the pandemic is the company that produces the little milk cartons that you grew up with in school. They didn't make it through the pandemic. And so now there's actually a shortage of that. And so at this conference, we're talking about packaging. And, one example is what's a replacement for those little containers.
Yeah, that's really...
That would be sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That checks all the boxes.
Checks all the boxes.
Checks all the boxes.
So I think it's really cool the direction, not only that the dairy industry is heading, but the direction that the PCC is heading and how it can help steward and support a lot of those dairy growers, whether that's here in California or all the way across the continent in Vermont. So I think that's all the time we have today. Thank you guys for joining us so much. We really appreciate it. So today we talked about the Shell Beach conference that PCC was joining and supporting. We talked about the PCC itself and what you guys are doing, and we also talked about the future of the PCC as well. So again, thank you so much, you guys, for taking time out of your day to come and join us. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time on You, Me, and the PCC, a Dairy Products podcast, brought to you by the Pacific Coast Dairy Coalition. Thank you.
Program funding for the PCC comes from the USDA. The show was created by Moses Mike, the faculty production lead. Guests for this episode included Katheryn Nathania, Susan Pheasant, and Laura Ginsburg. This vodcast is a production of the AGC 225 class called Digital Communications in Agriculture. The student team that produced the show included Rachel Majarian and Victoria Paolini, the directors, host Joe Aguiar and Kaylen Jaime, lead technicians Alexia Vasquez and Isabella Ribeiro, and the technical team, Jenna Fitzpatrick, Julia Fry, Caitlin Browder, Caitlin Cardoza, Yuri Ramirez, and Madeline Tellison. You, Me, and the PCC is a digital media collaboration between the Agricultural Education and Communications Department and the Pacific Coast Coalition's DBII through Fresno State University. These credits were read by Audrey Herrera. It's me!